Curfew sirens wash the blocks in a dull, official howl. You walk anyway. Cheap jacket, cheap pistol, expensive instructions. Every corner has new eyes. Every radio hisses when the news should be clear. The city is rehearsing a takeover, and you're already getting paid to play along. This is your life, level by level, inside a crime boss during a coup. Level 1 Street Enforcer, the Knuckles. You don't have ideology, only orders and faces to remember. Your route starts at first light. Market stalls with damp cardboard. A bus depot that smells like diesel and boiled tea. You tap a knuckle on metal, let the sound do the talking, and take the folded bills from a trembling apron pocket. You memorize safe streets by landmarks. The fuel queue that never moves, the shuttered cinema with torn posters, the drainage canal where packages slide through at night under a sheet of corrugated tin. Rumors of a coup hit like street static. Soldiers buy civilian clothes 2 sizes too big. Radios hiss after curfew like they're being pinched. Men you've never seen watch intersections like they own them. You tell yourself it's just tension. You tell yourself it's just politics. You tell yourself none of it reaches your block. Then you're told to discourage a union organizer outside the textile gate. A quick shove. A warning. Later you spot the same organizer with military bruises, boot-shaped purple, wrist marks like rope. Street work doesn't stay on the street. A lieutenant offers you a new job. Less walking, more deliveries. And you realize your fists were only the front door to a building already on fire. Level 2 Courier for the Black Ledger, cash and codes. The money is clean, the hands aren't. You trade the corner route for rituals. A dead drop in a public phone. Third booth, left hinge, tape under the metal lip. A crowded cafe where you sit facing the mirror behind the counter, counting reflections instead of faces. You never walk the same path twice. You burn paper over a sink, stir the ash until it's gray soup, and flush it like it never existed. In your pocket is a small notebook that looks harmless. Inside, it's a code sheet, numbers that map to names, addresses, inventory. One page can turn robbery into conspiracy. You tell yourself it's just errands. You tell yourself you're invisible. You tell yourself the police can't read your life. Street cops still take cigarettes and folded notes. Military intelligence doesn't. The risk isn't a beating in an alley. It's being dragged into a room with fluorescent lights and no clocks, then shown on the evening news as a warning. When you're summoned to count the real volume duffel bags of currency stacked under a bed, you don't feel richer. You feel like you're touching the coup with bare hands, and it leaves fingerprints you can't wash off. Level 3 Militia Paymaster, guns on payroll. You learn the quickest way to buy loyalty is to rent it. You sit at a kitchen table that was never meant for this. Envelopes in neat rows. A battered stamp pad. A roster written in nicknames. Rook, Stitch, Captain, Choir, because real names are liabilities. Men with armbands file in, boots wet from a rainy alley, rifles leaning against the wall like umbrellas. Payments become a schedule tighter than prayer. Stipends for street crews. Cash for off-duty soldiers who show up without badges. Food vouchers. Fuel chits. Even cigarettes, counted by the pack. You manage scarcity like a weapon. One missed envelope and the loudest loyalist starts asking who's paying more. You keep receipts in duplicate, one copy for your boss, one copy for your future defense. You tell yourself it's accounting. You tell yourself it's discipline. You tell yourself you're preventing chaos. Gunfire pops somewhere beyond the rooftops. Checkpoints appear overnight. Your men ask, quietly, which side to shoot if uniforms change by morning. And you understand the truth of your desk. You're not paying wages, you're leasing violence by the week. You've learned to hurt, to move money, to keep guns fed. Now a colonel's aide asks for a private meeting. The next step isn't street power anymore, it's becoming a bridge nobody can burn safely. Level 4 Shadow Negotiator, the Backroom Treaty. You don't command troops, you align appetites, fears, and deadlines. The colonel's aide doesn't meet you at the barracks. He meets you in the back of a butcher shop where the hooks are empty and the floor drain smells like bleach. The owner flips the sign to closed and turns the radio up, just enough to make your words harder to record. You bring a cigarette case filled with microfilm instead of cigarettes. You bring 2 envelopes, one thick, one thin. The aide brings a stamped authorization card, The kind that opens gates at checkpoints without questions. A map is unrolled on a flour sack table. Streets are circled in greased pencil. Names are written in the margins, then crossed out like mistakes. You tell yourself it's just contacts. You tell yourself it's just protection money with better uniforms. You tell yourself you're keeping your people alive. You negotiate an inventory, fuel drums, radio crystals, a list of reliable men to be left alone when the sweeps start. In exchange, you provide what the colonel can't buy: openly: union schedules, warehouse keys, and who to arrest, so the newspapers call it order. At this level, peace is a receipt written in pencil, and it smears the moment someone sweats. Level 5 Disappearances Coordinator, clean streets, dirty work. You don't pull triggers, you manage the absence that follows. Your office is a borrowed apartment with the curtains nailed shut. The door has 3 locks and a peephole that's been widened with a screwdriver. On the table, a stamp pad, carbon paper, and stacks of forms that look municipal complaints, transfer orders, release slips, except the letterhead is slightly off, the ink slightly wrong. Phones ring twice and stop. A runner brings license plates copied onto matchbook covers. Another brings a bag of watches and wedding rings that still carry body heat. You keep a ledger of movements, with columns for time, vehicle, destination. Not names. Never names. You tell yourself it's containment. You tell yourself it's temporary. You tell yourself the city needs quiet. The real work is coordination. Which checkpoint waves a van through? Which precinct logs a man as released while he's already in a basement? Which journalist gets a tip about a different scandal so tomorrow's front page looks away? You schedule denials like appointments and make sure families search in the wrong places. You don't see the missing. You see gaps on paper, and you learn a gap can be heavier than a body. Level 6 The Unseen Kingmaker. You don't take power, you assign it. You don't run the city, you decide who is allowed to. You stop traveling with cash. You travel with a small leather folder and a fountain pen that never leaks. Your meetings move upward: embassy receptions with sweating ice buckets, a banker's office above a jewelry arcade, the private dining room of a hotel that still serves steak during rationing. Everyone calls you by a harmless name. Everyone pretends they don't know why you're there. You listen to generals complain about discipline, and businessmen complain about instability, and you translate both into the same thing. Who gets protected, who gets sold? You tell yourself you're only advising. You tell yourself you're preventing blood in the streets. You tell yourself you're not the one signing anything. You trade in permissions. A union leader spared because his cousin controls the docks. A colonel promoted because he'll keep the port open to certain containers. A minister discredited with a photograph timed to arrive at the right editor's desk at 4 p.m. Your people don't wear armbands anymore. They wear badges, or they wear suits. By the time the new anthem plays on state radio, your fingerprints are nowhere because you've learned to rule like smoke, present in every room and caught in no hand. Curfew still howls. It just sounds different when it's working for you. You can wash money. You can rewrite records. You can appoint men who swear they act alone. But the city keeps a second ledger: whispers, empty chairs, streets that go quiet when your car slows. Rank never removes the weight. It only teaches you where to hide it.